Welcome to the SailPoint Identity Security Solutions Show, the one place where you'll get the latest developments about SailPoint product portfolio. I'm James Honey, and joining me today is Dan Martillotti, Senior Director of Product Management. Dan, welcome to the show.
Thanks, man. Good to be here.
Great. So, Dan, for today's episode, compliance and access controls are common topics in our world.
Yeah.
So let's dig into some things SailPoint is doing around deeper governance, separation of duties controls, specifically with our access risk management solution. Okay. So there's been a big push and constant push around centralizing access governance with our customers. And why is that?
So if you think specifically about, let's talk about SAP.
Yes.
Right. Many companies in the world run their business on SAP.
Yes.
Right. And so it's a mission critical application. So ensuring that individuals have the right access within SAP to be able to perform their job, be able to perform the functions that they're responsible for, but also to ensure that you've got the right risk controls in place, that you're not exposing too much information, you're not creating conflicts in responsibilities within the system. It's just really important to be able to think about that specifically within an application as important as SAP.
Awesome. So let's talk about separation of duties.
Yep.
So I think first we want to, let's establish what it is. Because it's also segregation of duties at the same time too.
Right.
And then why do organizations struggle with it?
Yeah, okay. So separation of duties is very simply trying to prevent somebody from having access that allows them to do something they shouldn't. Let's use an example, right? So if I am in accounting, I should be able to, if I can create a vendor within the vendor record, I should not be able to cut a check because I can pay myself.
Yes.
Right? So there's an opportunity for someone to do something that's inappropriate within the business. So creating policies or rules to prevent somebody from having those toxic combinations of access is what separation or segregation of duties is, right? It's simply being able to create the boundaries of what you can and can't do in combination.
So why is that so hard?
So from a business perspective, being able to define all of the things that are a combination of access that create those challenges is hard because you're talking about going across multiple parts of the business, talking to different parts of the organization, understanding specifically what do they need, and then tying it back to other parts of the organization, right? So it becomes very matrix oriented from that perspective, which that's always hard to govern. And so going through the process of trying to define what those policies should look like is just time consuming. Now, one of the things that we do with Access Risk Management with SAP is we provide an out-of-the-box rulebook. Right, the out-of-the-box rulebook is intended to give you the definition of what those separation of duty policies should look like as a baseline. Now you can go make adjustments to that to meet your specific needs.
And I think that's really important because, like you said, with SAP, it's such a massive solution with so many different applications. But having that rule book, the guide, for lack of a better word, it eliminates a lot of that front-end work that customers have to do.
That's right.
Awesome. So speaking of access risk management, we also have a couple of other kind of core functionalities that really drive some value. Can you talk about the what if simulation feature?
Yeah. So what if is basically an analysis of if I give James this additional access, what's going to happen, right? So the what and then the if, the result of that. So am I creating a toxic combination of access? Or if I'm changing or modifying a role, am I modifying it in a way that's going to create a toxic combination of access? Now, we can report on whether or not you've got a bad combination, but we also have the ability for customers, because there are always exceptions, right? You can define policies and say you should never be able to do these two things, but there are exceptions, and they always happen in the business world. So if you're going to do that, you need to have mitigating controls, right? What are going to be the set of things that we're going to do to ensure that this access is not improperly used or is limited in the time associated with it, with that individual. So within Access Risk Management, we can tell you here's the result of what that combination would look like. And if you want to approve it, these are the mitigating controls that are going to be in place that you're responsible for applying.
Oh, awesome. I think that's really good, and that level of complexity that comes out with that. So So there's another really critical aspect, critical capability of access risk management, and it's called emergency access.
Yep.
Because things break, something happens.
That's right.
So what are some scenarios where you see with an organization that has to invert emergency access, and what are the consequences if you do that and it's not handled properly?
Yeah. So again, thinking about the fact that SAP is a business critical piece of software, right? It's how I run my business. Things go wrong. Things go bump in the night, right? And so there are times when there is an accounting update that has to be made, and the person who's responsible for that update is out of the office, right? It's end of quarter. I need to submit my report, right? And so I want to provide emergency access to somebody to be able to go in and make an update. I want to limit the amount of time that they have that access to shrink down the opportunity for something to go wrong, and I want to be able to record what changes that individual makes, right? You ask, why is that important? Now I have an audit trail, right? When somebody comes back in and says, why did you give somebody this access? Why did you grant them this emergency access? You can explain why, and you can tell them here are the exact things that person did as a part of that access. So again, with a tool like SAP, just because of the business critical nature of it, there are just going to be things that happen. And so being able to grant somebody an emergency level of access to go deal with that problem, but being able to track it and show the results of it gives you good audit coverage.
And then make sure the auditors are happy, like you said. The
Exactly.
Audit coverage. So, so with that, obviously talking about SAP ERP, there's a lot of things going on with that customer base. So, there's about, who knows the real numbers, but 20,000 plus type SAP ERP customers who are either making plans or going through the migration to S/4HANA as a key aspect. So what should those customers who are making those plans consider when it comes to their identity security strategy in that transition?
So as customers are thinking about making that transition, right, and SAP is encouraging their customers to move to more cloud-based applications, the thing that I think that they need to be comfortable with and think about is, yes, SAP is mission critical. SAP is a big part of the business that we run, but there are other applications that are out there that are important as well that need to have the appropriate level of governance assigned to them. Right. So as you're going through that transition, looking at what your strategy is for overall identity security, not just with SAP, but with other applications in your environment, I think is critically important, right? And then looking at what are the cloud applications that are properly supported by the organization that you're working with. I mentioned earlier in the conversation we had about connectivity, the investment that we're making in cloud applications for SAP, right? We recognize that is a driver for our customer base. And so building out both the connectivity side to be able to govern all of the aspects of SAP that an organization uses, having the right controls for the core SAP that runs the business, and then having a good identity security program for the rest of the applications, the rest of the systems in your environment is a critical part of that process.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Dan, thanks again for joining us today and talking about access risk management and all the different scenarios, especially focus on that SAP ERP space. I want to thank everybody for joining us and listening to us. To learn more about SailPoint's product portfolio and to also see additional episodes, join us at SailPoint.com. Thank you.